we see a pastor or a Christian leader who is pushing the boundaries in terms of their rhetoric, their tone, maybe the content of what they're putting out on social media, at what point would you feel a sense of responsibility that I need to say something about this, I might need to shepherd the people under my care about this, or I might need to go to that person? How do you think about that?
It's a good question because it's a real issue and it's serious. There are ways in which we in pastoral ministry could potentially damage the reputation of our church, maybe even disqualify ourselves from ministry by how we conduct ourselves online. And that can happen in so many different ways. It may be the sort of angry sounding off at everything and everyone we don't like. It could also just be posting content that is just inappropriate in other ways. I've known people who there's a bit of narcissism in the sort of the gym workout type things that they post or something like that. They're things that can still be. We need to recognise there's more than one species of getting this wrong. And we might think, well, I'm never being angry and ranting at people online, so therefore I'm okay. But we might actually be being inappropriate in another way.
Right.
I think if it's a Christian leader we know, that makes it easier because we have a way to hopefully raise the issue with them offline. I don't always trust my judgment on this. So I might get a second opinion and ask someone else who's wiser than I and say, hey, am I right to think I might need to have a word with this guy? So just to check it is an appropriate time to say something. And I think if it's a pastor I know or who knows me, I would probably want to ideally meet with them. Mm-hmm. If I can't meet with them because they live the other end of the country, at the very least try and have a phone call.
Yeah.
And so I might message them and say, could I have a chat with you about something delicate? Because again, we're going to need to be nuanced in how we raise this, and it's going to be harder to do that just through an email or through a DM. What would you say once you've got that conversation set up?
Yeah. Well, it helps me to make a distinction between milder expressions of just a lack of wisdom on social media, where there's going to be a lot of things I think we're just called to overlook. And we might say, I wouldn't do that myself.
Yeah.
But that's not really rising to the level where it would be helpful for me to get involved. I mean, there's a lot of times to just overlook something if it's a smaller scale thing. But then, at the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're dealing with someone there are pastors who are bullies. Yeah. And it's beyond just like narcissism. They're actually harming people through what they're saying on social media. So if you're getting to that level, that's going to call for a much more firm response. Yeah. And there may be times to warn people in a very careful and thought out way of, hey, let's avoid this particular person because they are harmful in what they are saying. Yeah. But I like your idea of whenever possible, we want to go to someone. We don't want to complicate a situation by creating another public controversy that actually doesn't resolve anything. So if you're talking with someone, I think a big thing that I'm looking for is, do they have an open heart to consider input? And there are some people, again, who are so hard-hearted in their harshness that it may not be productive to have a conversation. And I think it's okay to feel a sense of release at that point. And in the pastoral epistles, it talks about sometimes just ignoring someone. Yeah. And we just simply don't interface with them anymore. But if someone has an open heart, then I think we want to lovingly express whatever the concerns we have may be.